Hi, and welcome to another Genshin video. With Venti having a rerun, I had some time to reflect on Venti's original banner back at the launch of Genshin Impact. It gave me some oddly nostalgic feelings despite the game not being 1 year old yet. But the characters with Venti included was my team that carried me in my early and most of my mid-game, and I still use some of them frequently. With nostalgia in mind, I wondered how that team would stand up in my current world level, and the current Spiral Abyss. So let's take a look at Venti's original banner. A team comp showcase. At a quick glance, we can already see that DPS will be a bit low, as we have Barbara in the team, which also means that floor 9 and 10 will be an absolute freezing nightmare. This is going to be an interesting one. On the other hand, Fischl is one of the best supports with Oz and can be built as a physical DPS. Xiangling is a pyro character, so that's immediately a good thing. We can also send out Goba to attack, much like Fish and Oz, and can also be built as a physical DPS if you so choose. Barbara is there as your healer, and can boost your team's attack with a Thrilling Tales of the Dragon equipped. If you have her at C6, which I don't, she can revive a character, which is something she can do exclusively right now. But as I mentioned before, I don't have that luxury. And well, Venti, well, being the Archon that he is, he's just the 6-star that he is. As for the way I build this team, here's the deal. Being the archer-loving person that I am, I have Fischl as my main DPS. With my RNG, I had to stick with a compound bow. I've only recently gotten a Rust, and it's still only at level 1. And my now R3 compound bow is at the moment better until I can get a second copy of Rust and actually spend time and resources to level it up. For artifacts, I went with a pretty standard physical build for Fish, with a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry and a 2-piece Glad. Unfortunately, my RNG left me with attack % Goblet, but I felt that was okay since I'm using a compound bow and that already gives a decent amount of physical damage % already. Also, attack % does end up working better for Oz's damage output over physical damage, so that was another reason why I didn't bother too much on trying to get a physical goblet. My Xiangling is built as a support with a prototype Star Glitter for faster uptime on her burst with the extra boost in energy recharge. Although this could be overkill because of how much energy particles Oz provides compared to anyone else. To quickly explain this, when Oz attacks and does a reaction, he actually ends up giving more particles than usual. This is apparently not a bug, but if you want a more detailed explanation, you should watch Tenten's video regarding that. His channel will hopefully be in the description down below. Back on Xiangling, I do a simple 4-piece witch set for more pyro damage and a bigger reaction damage as I end up using her for her Gooba and burst exclusively. But that would be different with a weapon like Crescent Pike, as having her do more auto attacks would be more viable. More on that later. Barbara is my dedicated healer, as any normal person would use her as. She has a Thrilling Tales of the Dragon equipped, so she can give an attack boost when she switches out, and also forces me to give her some screen time if I want my other characters to do a bit more damage. I will also activate her E, not just to get some heals in, but also if I want to get some more elemental reactions with Hydro. The issue here is that I don't have much control of who is the one proccing the reactions, which leads to lower DPS potentially, but sometimes I just like seeing more colors on screen. I will rely on her burst quite a bit if dealing with cryo enemies, as her E will get me frozen, and dealing with electro enemies could deal big damage while her E is activated as well. Finally, Venti is just there to do what he does best with his EQ combo, being a battery and swirling like no tomorrow. Stringless is his best 4-star weapon in my opinion, so he has that instead of Fish. And with this team, I think 4-piece VV can work better than in other builds, with the way I play this team at least, especially when compared to my Ning Venti team comp. But 2-piece VV and 2-piece Noblesse might still be better overall for DPS, if not just easier, as you don't need to worry about which element you swirl to proc the effect as much. When using this team, I can usually shut my brain off and go into autopilot, especially if I'm just in the overworld. but when I'm tackling more serious affairs, I try to use this cycle. I will start off with Oz, then follow up with Xiangling EQ, then Venti EQ, hopefully getting a pyro effect on Venti's burst, then switch into Barbara, use her elemental skill and a charged attack, switch to Fish so she gets the Thrilling Tales buff, and use her burst. And from there I sometimes go back into Venti and use another E to get some elemental particles, and then go back into Fish, or just stay on Fish and clean right up. Another cycle I do, and this one is usually in the overworld, is to start with Barbara, and start with a charge attack. I use charged attack since it does AoE damage and it gives Barbara some energy thanks to her 4th constellation, but you just need to get an enemy wet. From there I use Venti's EQ combo and get a water swirl, as well as get a water effect on his burst. The Thrilling Tales buff on Venti is fine, more damage from his burst is never a bad thing. From there, go into Xiangling if she has her burst up, and if the enemies are big, send out Goba as well. Then go into Fish and send out Oz to do some auto attacks. And then I appreciate all the colors. And then go back into Venti to use an E for more particles. One thing that I can find annoying is the knockback from overload on smaller enemies, but Venti has nice sucking power from his burst to negate that possible issue. Now, if given the chance to make changes and try to optimize this team, I would do the following. I would make Xiangling my main DPS with a physical build using Crescent Pike and a 4-piece Lava Walker, a build I am actually working on at the moment. Fischl would be a full support with ideally a stringless, but any bow that isn't physical damage would work just fine. For artifacts, I would go Thundering Fury. In this setup, I would want Venti's burst to be the pyro element. If RNG wasn't on my side, I would settle for a 4-piece Witch set on Xiangling and a 4-piece Thunder Suitor on Fischl, and would try and get an Electro Venti burst. But as some added notes, Venti's burst does the most damage when in the pyro element. And the other thing is that Xiangling might not be able to reach some enemies within Venti's burst, so keep that in mind. Venti would do the most damage with a Noblesse plus VV set, but you could also run a 4-piece Noblesse set if you want to give the team extra damage. Barbara would remain unchanged for the most part, but if you really want her to provide more damage, you could look into the Heart of Depth 2 or 4-piece set. Personally, I just stick with the Maiden's Beloved and know that I have a reliable healer whenever I make a mistake and take big damage. This team is pretty squishy after all. Now, of course, the big change that can happen is to replace the weakest link, that is Barbara. If you are willing to do that, I would suggest Bennett or Jean for Pyro and Anemo Resonance respectively, or if you like to have a shield character in your team, then Diona is another good choice. Now for the part I am dreading, using this team in Spiral Abyss. Off the bat, floors 9 and 10 have a lot of cryo, so using Barbara's E could cause some frustration, but also you have Venti to kind of help you out. With my team mostly being over-leveled, you will notice that it is pretty easy regardless. Now, floor 11 isn't too much of a problem, but that is mostly thanks to Venti. In the first half, I would completely avoid using Barbara's E to not get electroshocked if possible, but that may not be possible as her burst won't be up often on this floor. And then there's floor 12. There's probably a better chance of getting through floor 12 with this team in the second half, but first half could work as you do have a pyro character in Xiangling. For the second half, you will want to use Venti's E to freeze the Hydro Geovishap and use Barbara to freeze the Cryo one, if that actually works. In the first half, you'd want to overload the Geovishaps with Fish and Xiangling and try to avoid using Barbara's E when the Electro Balls are around, something that is quite hard to do. Another strategy that could work is just sending out Oz and Gua and keeping your distance. At the end of the day, the issue with Chamber 1 is that most of the strategies rely on Geovishaps being in their elemental form, and I myself did not manage to clear the first chamber of floor 12. Check it out.
Yeah, think you can get away? Let's dance. Here we go. Yahoo!
Let's dance. La 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 la. Why has everyone stopped singing?
You're toast! Nice and spicy! Help! Predator is attacking me! Out of the frying pan, into the fire! Out of the frying pan, into the fire! Race you! Nice and spicy!
No, did I ruin everything?
But at the end of the day, I think this team is pretty fun. There's definitely a decent amount of bias from my nostalgia of using this team in my early and mid game, but I do like rotating around my characters often in cycles, which provides a lot of elemental particles too. Also, this team does in a way end up being a full support team to some degree, and I don't mind that. But with that being said, I am done talking for this video. Let me know what you think about this team, and if you are one of the people that started Genshin Impact in its early days, was this one of your teams that you used back then? With that being said, this team comp isn't a top tier one, but I still wanted to bring that up as I still find that it is fairly viable. Obviously not quite so much for floor 12, but my clear for floor 11 does show that this team can do some damage, and who knows? Maybe by the time the new Spiral Abyss happens in possibly patch 1.5, I might be able to clear floor 12 with this team. Who knows? But with that being said, sit back and enjoy the rest of this footage. I am done for today, and until next time, adieu and goodbye.
Genshin.